What's up, guys? UFC Paris just wrapped up and the main card was amazing. Prelims, not many finishes. There's a lot of decisions. Decent fights, like Lapidus's performance was insane. Aylin Perez and Chris Duncan with their submission wins. Roosevelt Roberts giving a fight to Ludwig Klein. That was pretty cool. But nothing beats Renato Moicano proving to be better every time we see him fight. Bro's as American as it gets. It's crazy. He's from Brazil and stuff, but it looks like he reps America so much. And I'm a big fan of that. But I think the fighter that stole the show was probably Bryan Battle. Turning heel, becoming a character, another character at middleweight like they need anymore. But the more the merrier, man. That weight class is really fun right now. And if Bryan Battle can actually get into the top 10, there'll be some really interesting matchups there. The most impressive performance, in my opinion, was Taylor Lapilus. Right, we got to give some shout out to him, some credit to his performance against Morales. Amazing striking right there, man. The feints were on point, body kicks, fighting off the hand trap, all that sort of stuff. Lapilus is a very, very good fighter. Super impressed by him, man. The knockout of the card has to go to Ziam. KOing Matt Frevola from the clinch like that, off of the fence. Knee to the face. That's one of the best knockouts of the entire year. The submission of the card, I would give it to Chris Duncan, mainly because of how strange the submission was, right? Because it looked like his opponent Oki got out of the guillotine and then he went unconscious. It was like the last depleted strength that he had in him fought out of the guillotine, and at the same time he went unconscious. Crazy submission win for Chris Duncan. And the robbery of the card, every card has a robbery or two. William Gomis beat Joanderson Brito, where I thought Brito won the fight. I thought he won the first and second rounds. Close fight, competitive. Maybe robbery isn't the right word, but I guess it fits for the title of this award for the card. I'm going to do this for every single card. I think it's pretty fun. And with that, let's start with the main event. Renato Moicano defeats Benoit Saint Denis by a doctor stoppage after the second round. He destroyed Benoit Saint Denis. 10-8 in the first round. Benoit won the second round though, but it just not enough happened in the round to really matter when it comes to what happened in the first round, right? Benoit landed a couple left hands and stuff like that, but it looked like Moicano took the second round off a bit. He wasn't aggressive. He was trying to not even look for the finish in that round. And he has a hurt opponent in front of him. We've seen him way more aggressive against fresh opponents. And I wonder if that's actually what he did. If he took the round off a bit, maybe he knew that the eye was so bad that it was going to be called off and didn't want to do any more damage to Benoit, who was a lot slower. He was definitely fatigued or damaged enough where he wasn't able to dictate distance that well. He wasn't operating at the same kind of speed as he usually does. But man, is that guy tough. Fighting through that first round like that, getting into the second round, and even making it competitive is very impressive. Most fighters would be done after that first round. But Moicano just showed there's levels in MMA. Even though they're close in the rankings, Moicano's going to be like a right outside the top 5 kind of fighter. That's where I think his peak is. For Benoit Saint Denis, this is no disrespect to him. I've said it before, and this is just my opinion of his skills when I watch his fights. I just never thought he was that good. He's a big, strong guy. He's very tough. He has a lot of aggression with his style that can give fits to even some of the better opponents, right? Even against Dustin Poirier. But that kind of wild style just doesn't really work in the lighter weight classes. If Benoit Saint Denis was a light heavyweight, this guy would be like top 5 easy. But in the lightweight division where you need the skill, man, you got to be more sharp with your punches, a lot more technical and all that stuff. It's tough for Benoit Saint Denis to beat the better fighters. I know he was talking about before that he would beat Islam Makhachev, how Islam's grappling was overrated, but I think Benoit Saint Denis' peak is probably like the top of the top 10. Maybe number 8 to number 10, somewhere around there. But I do enjoy watching his fights, man. He's always very fun, always exciting. But the damage this guy's been taking in every fight is just crazy. I think he was given that Dustin fight way too soon in his career. I don't know if BSD has to go to another gym and maybe then he could become a much better fighter, but he's got to change something about his style. He's taking way too much damage. He's going to lose his prime before anybody else, right? In the fight, he was throwing naked shots, left hands, a body kick that got easily grabbed by Moicano. He did a really good job of using the butterfly hooks to elevate Moicano, but tried to stand up from his base. Like that kind of stuff you can't do against the grapplers at lightweight. Derek Lewis can do that in heavyweight, right? And he could just get out from anybody. But at lightweight, the rear naked choke is going to be right there. Especially Moicano. Renato Moicano reminds me kind of a Damian Maia type of fighter. Not as good as Maia, right? I don't want to disrespect the legend. Probably the best Brazilian jiu-jitsu we've ever seen in the sport. But the style and the approach is similar. You cannot let Renato Moicano take you to the ground, and you cannot give up your back. He is the lightweight backpack. Him and Charles Oliveira. How crazy would that fight be, man? That would be such an insane matchup. But I think Oliveira would beat him in the stand-up. The ground game would be somewhat equal, but only if Moicano has stronger takedowns, right? If his wrestling skills were just a little bit better, man, this guy would be beating some of the best lightweights in the world. I know a lot of people think that he could beat Justin Gaethje. I think he can only beat Justin Gaethje if Gaethje's washed. If Gaethje's not washed, he's knocking Moicano out because he's not getting getting taken down by him at all, unless like he slipped or something, right? Gaethje does have the worst Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the entire division, but he's got some of the best takedown defense. Khabib was able to take down Gaethje because that's Khabib, right? He's one of the best wrestlers in the sport's history. Michael Johnson took him down after rocking him first, and he couldn't even keep him down. I mean, look at the sprawl on Michael Chandler's takedown, how he's able to fight that off with the underhooks and stuff. Like, if he's fighting off Michael Chandler's takedown like that, he is not getting taken down by Moicano. And on the feet, Moicano gets absolutely obliterated. But maybe Gaethje is a little bit washed, so that could be a potential matchup. But I think the fight for Moicano next is Paddy Pimblett. He wants to fight him. Paddy Pimblett wants to fight Moicano. They're not too far away in the rankings, and I think it is a kind of a competitive fight. I think Moicano's going to win. I think he has better striking overall. I think he's better on the ground. He's got the straight punches. He has really good kicking defense. Paddy Pimblett relies a lot on his kicks, and if those are all defended, he might have to resort to his punches, right? And he swings these haymakers and hooks and stuff, and I think Moicano's jab and straight would beat those kind of clashes, right? And on the ground, I think Moicano's style of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is really good against the Paddy Pimblett kind of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu style, where he's a bit more athletic, a lot faster in his guard, and going for submissions and transitions and all that sort of stuff, always scrambling. Moicano's a lot more fundamentally sound. He's a lot stronger with his base and a bit more methodical with his transitions. But that should be a really good fight. That could be like a co-main event on a pay-per-view. Well, actually, maybe like a third fight. Moicano did also call out Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker is a very tough fight for Moicano because he's got really good takedown defense now. He's a much better striker, an iron chin. Moicano doesn't have the most power in his hands to, knock Hooker out or something like that, but he's got good straight punches, right? He will be able to land the jab, but Hooker would just walk right through and just start bombing him with hooks as Moicano's trying to retreat in straight lines. So excellent performance by Renato Moicano. Good, gritty, tough effort for Benoit Saint Denis. And then we go to the co-main event. Nassourdine Imavov beats Brendan Allen by unanimous decision, 29-28, winning the second and third rounds. This was an example of a striker being more well-rounded than the grappler and winning based off of that. Outgrappling Allen is crazy for Imavov. Like, he's the striker in there. He had a back take, stuffed every takedown after the first round, landed a lot of shots, good hooks in the pocket, but Allen's pretty decent on the feet. He was landing a lot of good shots. It looks like he needs a little bit more confidence in his striking and stop spamming takedowns like that. He was shooting those Aljamain takedowns, staying on the ground and stuff, knowing that ground and knees aren't a thing in the UFC yet. How many times did Imavov sprawl on those takedowns just to have to grapple his way out of there? He was in the position to throw knees multiple times against those Aljo takedowns. I don't like seeing fighters flopping for takedowns like that, man, because it's like they know they can't get kneed on the ground, so they're kind of using that rule set to their advantage, even though it's an unnatural position to have an advantage in. I don't think any fan really likes to see those kind of takedowns, but Allen did get one takedown right at like the start of the fight, and I thought he was gonna win with how quickly he got that. 4 minutes on the ground, neither fighter sweaty, but Allen just couldn't do much on the ground there. Able to get a takedown that easily, to not be able to get a single one after, shows Imavov's adjustment in the fight. Man, I think Brendan Allen could have fought way better if he struck with Imavov a little bit more than he did, right? And not just like flopping for those takedowns like that, because he was landing a lot of shots in the third round, but going for those takedowns I think hurt him. So who should these two fight next? I think Nassourdine Imavov should fight Caio Borralho in a #1 contender match. He can also fight Adesanya. Middleweight's kind of in a logjam at the title. Strickland is next. Then there's Whitaker versus Hamza, which is going to be after that. So pretty much like there's two #1 contenders already lined up for Dricus. And if Borralho and Imavov fight, that's a #1 contender fight. Like, that's another title shot for Dricus, because I don't know if Adesanya wants to fight a contender and climb back up, but Dricus is going to be very busy as champion. Hopefully he fights often, man, right? He can bang out those 3 title fights in a year. Imagine Dricus fighting Strickland, Whitaker, or Hamza, and then Borralho or Imavov in a single year. That would be such a crazy run. That's if he wins all those fights, of course. Man, the middleweight division is looking really fun right now. A lot of good matchups there. And as for Brendan Allen, I think he should fight Jared Cannonier or maybe the winner of Bo Nickel and Paul Craig, especially if Bo Nickel wins. Then we go to William Gomis defeating Joanderson Brito by a split decision. I thought Brito won. I gave him the first and second rounds. Second round, Brito got the takedown and an arm triangle choke for like 2 minutes straight, it seemed like. Third round, Gomis outstruck Brito with sharp technical shots from range, and the first round was the close one, right? That was the competitive round. Some people gave it to Gomis, but it looked like most people gave it to Brito. Gomis did get the takedown, but did really nothing with it. He didn't land much ground and pound. He didn't really amount much offense with his takedown. Brito at least attacked somewhat off of his back, right? He was going for the arm bar at one point. Didn't come close, of course, but at least it shows his aggression, right? And aggression might actually be important in scoring this round because the damage and the striking and the grappling were very close. They both landed hard on each other on the feet at that last exchange. Brito Brito landed a haymaker and Gomis landed a counter hook, both with a lot of impact, so I think that round is scored on effective aggression, and that's how Brito wins the decision, right? When you just look at the effective striking and effective grappling, it doesn't seem like either fighter really wins off of that. It seems very, very close because control time is not a factor in scoring that round. The second thing you go to is aggression before control time. Was the aggression equal? It seems like Brito was the better aggressor in the round. The only thing that's kind of confusing though about that is, would you give aggression to Gomis for getting the takedown and having top control? But then again, Brito was the one that was like trying to go for arm bars and, at least attacking off of his back somewhat. So that's why I gave it to Joanderson Brito. But with Gomis winning the fight, I think he should get a top 15 opponent. And Brito's right there too, right? If Brito wins one more time, he should also get a top 15. Gomis versus Edson Barboza would be a really fun fight. Two strikers, tall, long guys for the featherweight division. That could be a really good fight. And honestly, it favors Barboza's style way more than Gomis's. Barboza is one of the best fighters in the world in a neutral, center of the cage kickboxing match. Even though he's out of his prime now, I think he could do very well against Gomis, and it should be a really good fight. Then we go to Bryan battle, snapping Kevin Jousset's 5-win streak by a standing TKO in the second round. Bro just turned heel after this fight, just going off on the French audience. Yo, saying, no way you thought the Butcher will lose a fist fight to a French dude. That is so wild. In Paris of all places, he says that. Bryan Battle is going to become a fan favorite, man, if he isn't already. Because in the beginning of his UFC career, he really wasn't that exciting. A lot of people weren't really on board with him, right? They weren't on the hype train. But after his recent performances, a lot of people thought he won his last fight. And now with the different look and the whole heel turn and stuff like that, if he keeps performing like this, and he is getting a lot better, Bryan Battle might become one of the fan favorites in the middleweight division. And he made great adjustments in this fight, like high fight IQ stuff. First round, it looked like Battle wanted to prove that he can grapple Jousset, who's a really good judoka, but he wasn't able to get him to the ground at all. Battle tried so hard to complete the takedown, but barely budged Jousset. That guy's base is ridiculous. Like, the way he was able to keep his balance in the clinch was crazy. How many times Battle was trying to like trip him out, get him with the single leg, turning corners, all this sort of stuff, like different kind of takedowns, and none of them even got close to taking Jousset to the ground. And in the striking, both fighters were all offense, just throwing punches and dropping their hands, no defense at all. Then Battle fixed all of that in the second round. Picked his hands up to block, stopped focusing on the takedown and landed shots in the tie clinch, also with a single collar for dirty boxing, while Jousset was still dropping his hands and fighting the same. He made no adjustments in the second round. The volume was too much for Jousset to keep absorbing punches with his chin. Great win for Bryan Battle, man. And I think Bryan Battle should get a top 15 opponent next. I say him versus Roman Dolidze. Then we got Morgan Charriere. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. Getting a patient knockout against Miranda. He looked like he was so hesitant to throw in the first round and just sat in Miranda's guard instead of standing up, right? Miranda kept pulling guard, throwing punches, pulling guard, grabbing onto him, pulling guard. And Morgan could have just stepped out of it many times, right? He didn't have to sit in the guard like that. And there were moments where he was standing above him. Instead of just walking away and getting the ref to stand up his opponent, Morgan went into the guard again. It's like, okay, why is Morgan sitting in the guard? Morgan waited until the second round where Miranda span in slow motion, it seemed like, and just got poetoned. A Frazier left hook and got knocked out. I mean, Miranda, he tried to trip out Morgan from the clinch by kicking out with his right leg and then span so slowly. Morgan just lunged in with a full power left hook and KO'd him. That spin has to go down in like the highlight reel with Ben Askren, Chael Sonnen, and Dong Hyun Kim's spins. Crazy knockout for Morgan Charriere. And an even crazier knockout with Ziam KOing Matt Frevola with a knee to the face off of the clinch. Frevola escaped from the grip against the fence and ate a knee for it, man. And it was very technical from Ziam. He's a good kickboxer, but also out-grappled Frevola in the second round. These strikers, man, they're learning wrestling, right? They're getting it down and they're not fighting one-dimensional anymore. This is the evolution of the strikers with Ziam, Imavov, a lot of good strikers tonight that showed also pretty good wrestling skills. And Ziam took down Frevola more than anyone other than Arman Tsarukyan. Nearly got a rear naked choke. There was that one beautiful double leg takedown in the third round under Frevola's punch. Just really good wrestling from Ziam. Struck him the whole fight too. I don't even know if Frevola landed more than 4 punches on the feet. The reach was really tough for Frevola to land his shots, and he was reaching a lot with those overhands. Like, he wasn't using his footwork to necessarily get in close or cut off the cage and use feints and jabs and stuff like that. It was all power punches to get close, which made it very easy for Ziam to counter and just move around the cage. Sliding away, intercepting with a jab, win exchanges with 2-punch combinations is all Ziam needed to win the striking. And it just makes it so impressive when you watch Ilia Topuria and how he's able to cut off longer fighters. fighters and get in the pocket. Some of the best footwork in the entire UFC and one of the best fighters, short fighters, for entries into boxing range. And I think Ziam should fight a top 15 opponent next. If Ziam wants to fight maybe again this year, in December or something, or early next year, maybe he can go up against Jalen Turner. That would be a pretty good fight. Then with the Ian Cutelaba winning by a split decision against Ruslan. I thought this was a clear 29-28 for Cutelaba. I was surprised it was a split decision. Patience was everything for Cutelaba to win that fight. Landing great combinations, ending with lead overhands. Nice takedowns, top control. The knockdown, I think it was, with the straight through the guard, definitely was a knockdown, right? Because I don't know if Ruslan slipped a little bit during it. To me, it looked like a knockdown though. And the best sequence of the entire fight was when Cutelaba kicked out Ruslan's leg and chained that with a back take. He's getting better, man, and he's only 30 years old. This guy's been fighting forever in the UFC. Cutelaba might not even be in his prime yet, which is crazy. Great performance by him, man, defeating a dangerous knockout artist too. Maybe he could fight Umar Sy. And speaking of Umar Sy, he beat Jung by a decision. Good wrestling and excellent jab. He had that one good flurry at the end of the second round too, following up after his jab very well. Not too much from the fight, to be honest, but Sy striking looked really good in this fight. Right, these prelims, there was a lot of decision wins. Ludwig Klein defeats Roosevelt Roberts by a decision. Hats off to Roberts, man, for making that fight competitive. He was supposed to lose that fight dominantly too, right? Klein was a 10-1 favorite, and Roberts made that competitive. Nearly landed a flush head kick in the first round, landed big right hands in the third round, went for the guillotine, and just fought with Klein at every sequence. And it was Klein's wrestling that won him big in this fight. Grabbed the body kick and stayed on top for the entire second round, took Roberts down in the third round, sharp counter combinations, and fought very well in the clinch against his much taller opponent. Usually tall fighters have an advantage in the clinch, but Klein was able to control posture very well, landed elbows, and pushed Roberts up against the fence well too. Extremely good positioning by Ludwig Klein, and great fight by both fighters, man. One of the best fights on the entire card. And then Taylor Lapilus defeats Morales by a decision, clearly just a better striker. The feints were on point, body kicks from both legs, power roundhouses, and lead side kicks to the body, hand trapping for left straights and using stutter steps. Those hand traps also were measuring Morales' power hand, and Lap was able to duck under it for his own left hand, then faked that later for a knee instead of throwing the left hand. Then in the third round, he threw the left hand and followed with the same side knee after. Like, really high level stuff here by Lapilus, man. He was fighting on a whole different level. He's absolutely going to be at least a top 15 fighter in bantamweight, but I think he might be a top 10. Could be top 5, but that might be a little too soon to say if he's a top 5 future bantamweight. I thought he was the most impressive fighter on the card. Aylin Perez submits Zalesniakova, I think it's how you pronounce it. Submits her with an arm triangle choke in the first round, then twerked on her head. That's a classic Aylin Perez performance, I guess. A pretty quick fight where I got the takedown, got into the arm triangle. Didn't have to go into the complete other side for it too. Really good squeeze on that. Great submission win and one of the few finishes on the prelims. Daniel Perez defeats Victor Altamirano by a decision. I know it's not pronounced Perez. I mean, Michael Bisping was talking about it the whole fight. Is it Bereth? But Victor started the fight throwing kicks from range. Then his body kick got countered by Daniel's right hand and he got dropped. And then when Daniel did the Max Holloway and blitzed Victor, dropping him, that made me such a fan because he got dropped earlier in the round and his nose broken by that spinning back elbow, which was really good from Victor. That was a sharp counter shot. That guy's tough as nails, man. To be able to come back after that, dropping Victor, willing to exchange with him and all that. Crazy, crazy fight. Daniel's targeting the body with the right hand as Victor was ducking to that side, so he could also land to the head, depending on the defense of Victor. The commentators were talking about Victor kicking Daniel's arm to keep it occupied on defense, but that's only from range, right? When Daniel gets close, that's when he throws it. Kicking the arm can only work if it is from far range, and it was used to condition Daniel for a head kick and a leg kick, mostly a head kick. I think that's a better use for kicking the arm like that than to occupy it on defense. And that right hand was still landing and hurting Victor because Daniel was stepping on the outside foot, lining up the right hand constantly, even though his arm kept getting kicked. Great fight, man, and excellent performance by Daniel. Jacqueline Cavalcanti defeats Nora Cernoli by a decision. Cavalcanti had a very good right straight. Crazy snap and power in that punch. She defended takedowns a few times, using good underhooks, good defensive grips, and also grabbing onto the fence in the second round. That probably should have been a point deduction, or the ref should have brought them to the ground and continued the fight like that. She yanked on that fence, man, as Cernoli was trying to take her to the ground, but Cernoli was spamming lead high kicks. None of those were landing, and it seemed like she wanted to fight her coaches more than her opponent. Why did she start yelling at her own coaches mid-fight? Were they just like giving her bad corner advice? I mean, her spamming head kicks and sitting on the fence the whole fight wasn't really working for her, so I don't know what the coaches were telling her. But good win for Cavalcanti. Her boxing looked really good in that fight. And then Chris Duncan with the upset win against Bolai Oki, submitting him with a guillotine off the takedown. Oki fought out of the guillotine, but still got put out, right? He still went to sleep after. Very weird finish, right? It seemed like he lost consciousness as soon as he used all of his strength to just get out of the guillotine. The fight was really good before that too. Great striking exchanges, but great win for Chris Duncan and crazy hard from Oki, man. That was a pretty fun fight card, and I think a lot of these fighters are going to be going up against top 15 opponents next. So what did you guys think of the card? Did you guys enjoy it? What were your favorite fights, favorite performance? And I'll see you guys in the next video.